Good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining us for CT Veteran Grown webinar series specific to marketing. I have with us Miranda Creative to present on digital advertising, getting the most bang for your buck. I'd like to introduce our speaker, Greg Boyd, who's with Miranda Creative. Greg is a highly skilled professional offering over 25 years of business experience and a breadth of digital knowledge to Miranda Creative, leads their digital and social marketing division and delivers strategy and tactics to achieve optimal outcomes for clients while also remaining focused on the bottom line success. He has digital advertising solutions, paid and organic social search engine optimization, mobile messaging, and content strategy to list of services provided by Miranda Creative through his strong experience gained while serving the healthcare, hospitality, and gaming sectors. Prior to joining Miranda Creative, Greg moved from New York to Norwich to join Mohegan Sun and replatformed their presence. He later spent over a decade at the Waterford Hotel Group, working directly with some of the largest brands in hospitality. His ability to develop and strategically deploy experiences across multiple channels, digital advertising, email, social media, and web, allows to deliver quality and consistent digital products to clients. Connecticut RC&D is happy to partner with Miranda Creative on the Connecticut Veteran Grown Initiative, and we're thankful Greg here tonight to present our webinar, Digital Advertising. So with that, I'll hand it over to you, Greg.
Wonderful. I'm happy to be here. That's a lot of words to say that I'm a nerd. But I grew up my first 18 years in Washington County, New York, upstate, very, very upstate, So I'm very familiar with agriculture and grew up being off in the silage and all kinds of fun stuff. So had a lot of fun on the farm. Learned a lot about the environment, the communities that we're all growing for. So anyway, let's get started. We're here to talk about digital advertising, online advertising, not necessarily marketing strategies or content or things like that, but really the nitty-gritty of if you want to be seen online and you see other businesses or other entrepreneurs and farms out there, how do you do that? So right now, we're going to go through, the campaigns and the types of things that those campaigns can provide you, the results that you should expect to get from them, and the ways to optimize your investment and going through that process. I've kind of distilled this down into 3 parts today. It can be very overwhelming and very nerdy, but you have some resources. I'm happy to be here today, answer any questions you have as we get to the end, or we just discussed earlier. We're going to go, as we go through this, we have basically 3 sections. We'll take some questions as we move through this. I don't want to leave anybody in the dark, and happy to help. We're here to encourage you and help you to succeed. So speak up or I think drop a note into the chat and we can certainly address any of the questions that you have. So we're going to look at display versus intent-based advertising. Those are kind of 2 main ones that the buckets kind of cover when you're looking at online advertising. We're going to talk about the types of advertising and the expected results. So there are a few different types of or methods to do this and what you could expect to get from each of those methods. And then in general, how to optimize whatever you're using to get the most out of it. Every platform, every ad network has things in it that will more effectively position you above competitors, more make your money last a little longer, or spend your money even faster than you really should. So to be aware of these things, I think is very important. And I'm happy to share those with you now. So there's basically those 2 ad types that we talked about. They are display, which is kind of a passive impression-based system. So impressions are something in the advertising industry that is a main metric for display. It's your billboard on the side of the highway. How many people drive by there and see that billboard each day? That's an impression. Every time it's seen, that's an impression. So you think about those banner ads you see online. Those are typically measured by the amount of impressions that they garner, how many eyeballs we get on them, not necessarily how many clicks. The clicks are where the intent-based advertising comes into play. So that's Google search ads. So when you search for anything on Google, typically you're presented with some paid sponsored opportunities up front center first. And those are in the moment, if I am looking for a new pair of boots, a gallon of maple syrup, whatever it is, there are ads that come up first to persuade me to visit those sites and purchase or take that activity there before everything else that shows up below there, and those are organic search results. Organic search results are influenced by SEO. Paid advertising sits, at the top, usually top three slots in Google, primarily focused on Google. I do recognize Bing, and there are other search engines up there, but number one market share is Google. Um, a little bit upended now with AI and people asking chat GPT and other things like that, what's going on and how to get information. But when it comes to purchasing, typically Google has the best platform for you to be on. So that's something we'll talk about a lot today. I'm not going to get into, and there, just like any other industry, there are so many options out there. I'm not going to really get into Reddit or email or Nextdoor, Pinterest, Spotify, Netflix, Amazon, X. There's so many platforms that are available to you. My only advice with that would be if you've got a product or a niche that you're in that has a robust representation there and you want to be part of that, that's when I would look at what my options would be to advertise in those spaces or to sponsor some kind of content or whatever that might be. Um, but we're going to focus on some of the main advertising platforms today. So to go back to that display, um, this is where you see banner ads, whether they're across the top of the news site, down the right rail of a website when you're reading the sports scores, things like that. As well as if you're on an app looking at the weather, you see the little ads that are there. Typically, we'll discount those, but with enough impressions and the right messaging, they can be very effective. So primary goal there is definitely awareness in the top of funnel engagement, so in the marketing funnel, getting someone aware of your product or your business is the number one goal there. Excuse me. And as they move along through that funnel, the number of people and it gets smaller and smaller and smaller. But this is where you're casting that wide net. We can advertise to people using this technology based on graphics, which would be uh, male, female, some things about their income levels, propensities, activities that they're into, outdoors versus shoppers and things like that. That's bleeds over into interests, things that like types of cars they might want to drive versus the car they do drive. Website placements, if you have a website, a blog, or something that has advertising that you've seen on it. I think of as a good pair. Like there's a couple of like newspapers or blogs in Hartford for political things. So if you were selling or working on a political thing, you'd want to put it on that site. Excuse me. So you could designate that people who are interested in these things, I want to show them my content, my ad. Um, they're not just ads on websites, but they also do show on social media, as well as when you place the ads on social media, you can easily appear off social media on these websites and be powered by Facebook or powered by, I guess, Meta as it is now. So going to see a lot of clicks with these. That's not the point. The point is to get awareness of your business. Um, Typically, a click-through rate there is going to be about 0.0, 0.1. Um, but you just reach a lot of people. So it's not, the point is not to get clicks. It'd be like, hey, we're alive, we're kicking, here we are. And with the right creative and the right placement, you can actually make a good uh, a good effort at getting people, growing your awareness and getting people to look you up, to take that next step, to actually click and to become aware of your brand. There are a lot of metrics and it always varies and are always easily found to be false, but typically it takes about 7 impressions to get that awareness and notoriety going. There's other metrics that go up to 20 before they'll buy and things like that, but it's best for building that brand recognition and staying on. So the intent-based advertising, that's when you're actively doing something. You're searching for that product, you're searching for that thing. I need a place to go with my family. I need a product for my my horse needs a new brush, whatever it is, you're actively searching for that. That's when you have an opportunity to get into the intent-based advertising space. And those are typically Google ads. And that does obviously have a higher conversion rate. So a conversion is when does the thing that you're hoping for them to do, whether it's signing up for an email address, signing up for a newsletter, for instance, or buying an actual product from you. Maybe the conversion is just looking for directions to a place of business. That's the thing that these types of advertising really deliver best. And they're certainly a little bit more expensive, but they are more qualified leads because of that intent. That what they're searching for. So obviously, if they're searching for um, a farrier to get some horseshoe work done, um, you can pop up in that space, right? And it's best for capturing people that are ready to buy, ready to take action and do something. So those are basically the two types. Um, and each of those working together has a lot of power, but if you have to do one or the other, they can also move the needle for you and your. Any questions really quick on any of that stuff before we keep going? Okay. So the major campaign types and those expected results. So this is about the action. Now we start at the top of the funnel with two things, and then keep working our way down to very specific data points or very specific that you can take as a business owner. Um, so we all know about that Google piece I spoke of. I'm sure everybody's seen the search engine marketing. Um, there are a lot of people that click those, and there's some people that just skip over it. So you've got to take that into account too as you're considering your target audience. Are my consumers typically people that are going to be looking for organic content, or are they going to be okay with if I put the right message in front of them, they're going to click through on my search engine ad? So we also know it's SEM, CPC, PPC. Those are some other words we use for it, but it's a pay per click, and you can expect to see a 3% click-through rate on those, which that's pretty typical. The way that I measure it is we do a lot of work in Google, and one of the things they offer are Google Ad Grants. And by being a partner who has ad grants, you have to meet certain criteria. So when Google says you have to have a 4% click-through rate to be um, part of that environment, that tells me as a marketer that that's the standard that they're setting for themselves. So that must mean that we're applying that across the board. So around 4% is the cutoff of where I would say you've got some good results. Anything above that, we're doing fine. Anything below that, we really should work on. And the way that you can impact your click-through rate is pretty varied, and we'll get into that in a moment as well. But the conversion rate is after they click through, they get to your website, and they're going to do something. If you've got the right message and the right ad, you should see between a 2.5 and a 5%. So for every 100 clicks that come to your website from a paid ad, you should see 5 of those clicks become a new customer, sign up for the email, look for the directions, whatever you're setting as your conversion. Um, Precise. So some of the ways that you can impact how effective those ads are making sure that your keywords are pretty precise. It's important to have keywords that are aligned with what you're advertising. So if you're doing a maple syrup uh, advertisement, you're looking to really move a lot more product this year versus last year when you were just doing some organic stuff. Maple syrup, maple syrup near me, store maple syrup, natural maple syrup. There are some phrases there you definitely want to focus on and not go too far down the rabbit hole with other things that could be um, pulling people into your site or into a click that would be erroneous, where they might think they're going to buy materials to help them uh, to boil off some sap or something like that. You don't want to confuse people, and just the same, you don't want to confuse the system with keywords that are not necessarily relevant to what you're actually selling or trying to do. So precise keyword targeting is important. And there's also negative keywords. I mentioned that too. So if you're doing something like maple syrup, you'd want to put like minus Mrs. Butterworth on the other side of that fence, because maybe someone's looking for the cheapest maple syrup and that's not what you're about. So you want to put in your negative keywords, cheap maple syrup, because I don't want folks that are looking for cheap maple syrup. I want them looking for the best maple syrup. That would be one of my keywords. Best maple syrup, yes. cheap maple syrup would be in my no list. And that no list can be just as important as a positive, keyword list. Um, your copy, when you write it and when you put these ads together, there's within the Google infrastructure. I think if any of you have created a business page or have a Google account and you're affiliated with your Google business page, they're offering you advertising options to start it yourself and do that. Um, the copy that you create yourself is very important. In this age of AI and the algorithm and all of that, they're going to try to write this for you, and it's not always the best because you could have a website that's a little old, and maybe you have pages on there that you did not consider updating. Google and these ad networks will pull in that content and create an ad for that page out of that content that might just be really poor. So as a human, we would read it and say, wow, why does that say 19, or 2019 maple syrup prices? I want 2025 maple syrup prices, right? So when you write it yourself, it's pretty important to make sure that you've gone through and done that on your own. It's authentic and it's got a clear call to action, like buy 2025, maple syrup now would be a great headline to put in there. You could put a bunch of headlines in there and it'll discern over time which ones work the best. So I know, for instance, for Google, there's 15 opportunities for headlines, and then it'll put them together in different combinations to see which ones win. And um, making sure those keywords that you're allowing people to store are also followed through in your advertising fee. So if I'm talking about maple syrup as a keyword, I want it in my headlines and my descriptions, and I also want to make very sure that it's in my landing page. When those all come into alignment, the keywords, if you've got a conversion, that's great, but everything works together and Google will lower the cost. So if you're paying $1 for every time someone clicks on the keyword maple syrup and your site's spending time there and not coming back, that's a signal to Google. That was a really good use of everybody's resources. I'm going to promote that one and use it more. And if someone clicks through maple syrup, they said, oh, this page is garbage. It doesn't load fast. It has bad imagery. It's out of date. Now, I'm going to hit the back button. Google knows that. They see that and say, wow, that ad actually wasn't what that person was looking for. And then you get a demerit, right? You get pushed down and you're either going to be paying more for your clicks or just not show up at all. So that the ad copy and the keywords are really good to have in alignment with both your website and all of it working together. I can manipulate this and drive up your click-through rate by putting my brand name in there. So if it was Greg's Maple Syrup, and if someone Googled Greg's Maple Syrup, obviously I'm going to come up first. Everything's going to be in alignment. My website is gregsmaplesyrup.com. I've got the Greg's Maple Syrup keyword, and I've got that in my headline. That's going to make, all right, it's a paradox, but it's going to make the click super cheap, maybe a penny or two, up to maybe what, a quarter. But if I didn't do that work, it would have come up in a natural search. I would have paid nothing. So you got to kind of, I get this question a lot, and it's kind of, you got to weigh the competitiveness of the environment. So if you're not protecting your own brand and someone else is using your brand keyword, they could steal your share and steal your clicks. You don't want that. So you would want to put your own keyword in there or your own brand name. By default, I don't like doing that. Do think it's wasteful, and you don't need to do it as long as you have good SEO, a good website. And for instance, when you search for your own brand name, if your business comes up first on the right side in the Google My Business listing, they're looking good there, great. If you got a website that's really not performing, that's you're not you haven't done a lot of SEO work to get your name out there, that's when you can really leverage the paid search marketing like this to be at the top of the results, even though your website might not be putting you there organically. So that's a lot, but there's just nuances there. And that click-through rate is going to be 25, 50%. And your marketing people would say, oh my gosh, this is great. It's fish in a barrel. So do you want or need that? It depends kind of answer. So social media advertising, however, it's got a lot more going on when it comes to targeting and the expectations out of it. So with these with marketing, I'm talking about the ads that show search result. Google supports a lot of other types of campaigns. There's Google Shopping. If you sell products on an e-commerce store, you might want to do that. And you've all seen this. If you shop a specific product, it's going to line them up across the top of the page, and you could buy it right there and go through that process. Google offers something called PMax, which is an amalgamation of all of the advertising they offer into one campaign. I would not recommend that for a small business. It's very hard to come up with all the assets that work together, whether it's video, display, search, um, everything together, and you really don't have control over how much that costs and how to manage that. So I always would say my recommendation for a small business is start specifically with website traffic ads. Um, and there are there's concepts. Again, that's where it pulls the content out of your website. Not always the best strategy because you want to drive your own boat with that and steer your own way. And if you let Google do it, you might end up with some less than favorable advertising and not really spending money wisely. With social media here, we've got platform specific ads. And I'm sure if you've been on social media, you see the difference between scrolling on your phone versus scrolling on a desktop. On a desktop, you get much larger ads. Maybe there's more opportunities to click. And then on the phone, it's a little bit different where it's a video and the call to action or the clip is kind of at the bottom of that video, not really prominent. And all that variation can affect how effective they are for you. So considering advertising on social media, you really do need to think about this platform and how specific ads and what they offer as vehicles to drive traffic to your website. And like I mentioned earlier, with the awareness and the impression-based advertising versus the click-through advertising, when you set up an ad campaign or do advertising on Facebook, for instance, they're going to ask you, what's your goal? Is it awareness or is it traffic? So we call them traffic ads and we call them awareness ads. And so can have a third type, or there's more, but another one would be followers and engagement. We're trying to gain an audience on that platform and not send people to your website. So there's a lot there to think about before you start advertising on social media. What is my goal? Do I want to grow a community on Facebook? Do I want traffic to my site from the Facebook users? Or do I just want people on Facebook to know about me because I know that there's a lot of folks that are in my demographic, maybe 45 to 65 that are on Facebook right now. That's another consideration as you're thinking about social media. Um, each platform has its own kind of built-in demographics, right? Um, Most Facebook users are 35 to 65, a little older now, skewing older. Instagram is in the middle, and you've got TikTok kind of in that very early, what is it, kind of space. So if I'm targeting younger people, I'm going to think about video and getting on TikTok. And so knowing who your customer is very important. What you can see here is, some metrics about what to expect from engagement and conversion rates, a little bit, pretty much the same through all these advertising platforms when it comes to conversion rate and things. But it's a little harder to get people to move from some social ads to actually convert because they offer opportunities within their own platform to bring your store into that platform, do selling and product placement within social media platforms without needing to go to your website, for instance. So again, there's a lot to consider there, but the great stuff about social media is that detailed audience targeting. What are they interested in? What are they doing online? Who are they? You can really dial that in. With a platform appropriate creative, that means the sizes of the images and the video, what you're seeing on social media does change frequently. Instagram just rolled out a change this week, which is a lot of our work. We have to go and resize images so they fit and look appropriate. It's difficult sometimes to keep up, but it's important to make sure that your ad and your placements look the best they can in the spaces that they're given. Each of those platforms offer all the details and the requirements that you would need to get that going. And it's also important to test, if you can, what works and what doesn't work. So don't just roll out one ad and think that that's going to solve all of your challenges. Do 3 or 4 versions or variations and see which one is winning after a couple weeks and start focusing on the ones that are winning and the ones that are not working for you. I outlined the costs and a kind of here where you'd want to start if you're, looking at just getting, into the gear. Facebook is obviously got the most amount of users, very low cost, low impact in terms of how much resource it's going to take for you to implement this and get it working. Most people can roll this out pretty quickly. They offer a lot of good help. Many people use this and make it very easy to do. And certainly you can help, you can reach out for help from professionals like us or other people, Instagram's also part of that platform. After that, a little bit more money because of the investment video would be YouTube. Again, very good awareness, very good saturation in the different marketplaces. And X is on there as an option for you, which used to be Twitter. There's a lot more activity I'm seeing there, but it's still a little costly. And then LinkedIn, because it's a professional platform, I don't know if that would apply here, but top of the line when it comes to costs of reaching new people will be LinkedIn. And TikTok, again, the video aspect of this is driving up the cost, as well as the targeting on that is not very good. It's difficult for, we're here in Connecticut. If I just wanted to do the Litchfields area with my promotion or my TikTok ad, it would be difficult to get enough users um, in that space to make it worthwhile. We're running into that a lot. So TikTok is kind of off the table. If you want to do the entire state of Connecticut, you've got some options. But when you want to dial it down to a neighborhood or something like that, you'd want to stick with Facebook. Very good targeting there in terms of being able to pick a 2 or 3 mile radius around a city, for instance, and have some activity there. The next type of advertising that you'll see and you might have access to is programmatic display advertising. This is fan ads for sure that you see a lot around the internet. This is driven by an ad range, a vast network of ads, very similar to Google's, but this is separate. And we use this a lot because of the explicit, amazing targeting you get with this. If you're looking for, if you notice that your farm stand had everybody that pulls in a BMW, we can target just BMW drivers and put the ad in front of them. If that you've got a very specific group of people that you want to sell to, the targeting that's available with these platforms is second to none. It's really amazing. And it's really, really good to add retargeting to your website. So you bring somebody into a click, and then they'll start seeing your ad as they bop around the internet or apps and things. There's also the concept of frequency capping, which is something that comes up often. How many times will someone see my ad each day? That's something to consider. We usually set that around 11 impressions a day for best practice. And you need to make sure you can rotate out your creative frequently. You don't want to have the same stuff showing up all the time. And there's also really interesting things we can do with dynamic generation of these, where on the fly they are created. There's what we have of if it's raining out, we know the weather, we can start advertising our umbrellas. We only advertise umbrellas when it's raining. So there's a lot of technology behind this platform that I don't, yeah, as an individual entrepreneur, you wouldn't have access to this, but part of with the company could get you there for some really, really interesting activities in advertising. Beyond that, there's video and OTT. YouTube is the main one, the YouTube TV role this year as well. Netflix is now doing paid tiers, and there's social. So everywhere you look, video is really moving fast. And again, something you should really highly consider more than almost any other platform or any other type of media is video is just ubiquitous now. You can see here that the rate is not as great, but again, more about that impression and getting your awareness out there. Best practices include that 5-second hook. So right when that video loads, get somebody's attention. You've seen this on Instagram, I'm sure, or different videos platforms. Get somebody to stick around, and then clearly define what you're doing, and then move into that mobile first approach where your videos might be shot vertical instead of a horizontal landscape. But with you do have access to YouTube Shorts now, which is a vertical format. Most of YouTube ads are horizontal. So working on your own, you'd want to shoot whatever you're doing both ways and do unique videos for each platform or each application. And if you're working with a professional, they could, do that for you as you create your advertisements, your ads. But it's really important to take away from this that in the digital space, I wish I had concrete numbers for you, but we all know that that vertical format is very important, probably more right now than the horizontal format that we've all kind of grown up with and are used to. That's those are kind of the highlights there for the types of ads. And does anybody have any specific questions right now with that stuff before we move on? All right. So ways that we can optimize all of that work. Um, Targeting optimization options. So talked about audience segmentation a little bit, but not definitively. So that means if you're able to create audiences out of your customers, you're going to have better success because you can pair your advertising, your messaging to the specific person. It also allows us to do smart things with our ads. We work personally, I work with a large company that has a lot of clients, a lot of members. Let's put it that way. We can run ads, kind of blast them out there and not worry about targeting because we're running a campaign that includes their massive list of the existing member. So we're not necessarily putting our ad in front of someone who's already a customer of theirs. That's very valuable, not wasting their ad spend on people that are already customers. So that's a segment of that is very important to that campaign to make it run well. You could also tailor your ad for a younger audience using if you have a list of younger people, and then obviously there's so many different ways to do an audience slice and dice that would apply to advertising that makes sense for you. Geographic targeting is very, very important as well. Most of these platforms allow you to put a radius around a place. Google will allow you to do a lot of things like, New London County, for instance, or uh, around a city or a town. You can also exclude cities. So if I said all of Connecticut minus Hartford, I could do, the rural areas around there in that kind of way. But it's important to know, geographically where you're going because it's display advertising can eat through the budget really quick. And these are so a good way to preserve your budget and to make it last the longest is to use geographic targeting to really hone in on the immediate area, those target markets where if folks are driving up from Fairfield to have on the farm to cut some Christmas trees, you want to target Fairfield more so than somewhere else that might not have a population, even though you do get a lot from your local area. Um, Device targeting is also an option. Most of these platforms allow you to say, I only want to show this on mobile. I only want to show this on desktop. Um, some There's some consideration of if you're shopping for, I mean, we've seen this in our own life, if we're shopping for a large ticket item, I'm probably going to be on my laptop comparing stores, comparing everything on a larger screen. So with that, you want to consider using display advertising that was not in the mobile size. So you're kind of guaranteeing it's going to show up on the desktop size. Or, the opposite could also be true if you're selling something that's an on-the-go kind of thing. I'm not going to waste my time having a creative person put together all these extra ads. I'm going to focus on the little 300 by 300 square or the 300 by 50 little rectangle for mobile devices and just make sure that if they're in this area, I'm going to show them my ad on the mobile device. And time of day is a big, big waster. A lot of folks. Um, I don't know about you, but I go to bed about midnight and I wake up about 6. I'm not looking at ads in the middle of the night. So every platform, I think not except for allows us to, well, they might do it. I don't know. It's been a minute with that one, but they allow you to turn it off at certain hours of the day. So if you're advertising locally, by all means, save on the overnight clicks that are coming from outside of your target area or just are really low quality for the time of day that matters most to you. I have a hospitality background and at a hotel that was very, very cost conscious, but they knew they had to be in the space. Did their Google Analytics, and we found that most of their traffic was between 10 and noon, and in the evening between 5 and 8. So we only ran their ads for that, 6 o'clock or 6 hours of the day. And that was the most effective way for them to be able to optimize their return on investment versus showing that all day long when they might not have as active or people that were had to buy immediately. So there's a lot of things you can do with optimization, just using these four, what am I going to call them? Four strategies. There we go. Um, so budget allocation options are another thing that you're going to run into. So all this advertising, it costs money, it takes resources, not just you have the time and the investment and all that, but every click is paid for, or every impression has to be paid for. So how do you get the most out of those? Um, Really, it's about identifying your goals and understanding of what you're going to expect before you go into it. Um, there's also some bid strategy optimization things that we can do. A lot of this is kind of nerdy too, but as a lay person, if you're going into Google Ads, for instance, and um, you have 10 keywords, and there are tools that'll tell you um, there's what's it, Google Keyword Planner is free. It's within the Google Ad system. There's also uh, there's a couple you can find them. They'll tell you what the keywords cost. So going into it and knowing that your keywords should cost you on the low end $1 and the high end $10, that's a huge range. So you start at a place where you start to get traction around $5, and then you understand, is that working for me? And if it is, I can dial it back until it stops working for you. And that's a good strategy to preserve funding for a small business. And if you find that that's really not a quality click, go direction can actually drive better results, but you're not going to get as many clicks, but maybe they're buying more. So again, this is testing, and this is you need some longevity in all of this advertising to understand if it's actually for you or not. Um, Running a campaign for a week is not going to give you results that are going to be worthwhile. There's something called the learning phase for all of our platforms. And that's exactly what it is. The systems are understanding where the clicks are being most valuable, where the price points are, where the people are physically and geographically, what's working for your campaign. So if it's not done figuring that out, you really haven't hit your stride. And by shutting off a campaign after a week, for instance, you're really not doing yourself justice there. Budget pacing is an interesting concept. Are you going to spend your courses flat every single day, $10 a day? Are you going to turn it off weekends because you're finding that there's just no traffic or you're not getting the orders on the weekends, or the vice versa, are you just going to focus on the weekends, maybe Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Mondays? There's a lot you can do with your budgets to say, makes the most sense for my outfit. It's again, there's a lot of this stuff is just not thought of or conceived of or overlooked until where it's put, look, wow, I only have this much money to spend. How can I get the most out of it? Well, not just going every single day at the same rate is one tactic. Or if you've got seasonality and you know that the fall is really big and the spring is, and then the summer is kind of dead, but you want to have some visibility, you have this bell curve or whatever, where you're kind of low in the summer, but you're still doing $5 a day, and then in the fall you're really gonna, and then let it ebb back off. So that's more of a seasonal adjustment as well. And not just with the budget with seasonal, but make sure your creatives match what you're advertising is in. So seeing a summer boardwalk, during the winter, unless I'm selling that trip to someplace amazing, might be a mismatch. So, want to instill a lot of the seasonality that we're having. Yeah, we have 4 seasons here in Connecticut, bringing that to your advertising, those creatives, the visuals, especially in the video advertising you're doing, it all matters. So another thing to consider as you're looking through. Um, Creative optimization is also important. We kind of touched on all this works together, so I'm kind of mashing it together. But A/B testing is, is it these two gentlemen, in a suit, or we have a picture of them with a brown suit? you would be surprised. Things can change how effective your ads can be. Most of the time, we're focused on that red button. Let's talk about your case in this instance. This is for a lawyer in Norwich. That seems to work well for them versus learn more, click here. So you can test your ads and see what works best. So A/B testing is one or the other. Multivariant testing is if we've got 16 of these ready to go with 16 different color combinations. We put them all out there at once, and at the end of a period, we figure out which one works best. There's also the concept of creative refreshes. People get kind of sick of seeing the same ad over and over and over again. I'm sure you do too, right? So getting in there and making sure you're understanding that over time, I need to be swapping out my ads. I can't leave the same thing running for months on end is very important. And the algorithm and the technology that's running these platforms recognizes that as well. So as your creative is running and running and running, it's called creative fatigue, and you will not be getting the exposure that you once got. You'll see that your results are dwindling, and you'll be like, "Why? What's going on?" It's because it's just creative fatigue. People are done seeing that specific piece, and you want to switch it up and change it to something fresh. And then format experimentation. Again, that kind of goes back to each platform having options, whether it's a full screen takeover or a small, text-based ad. There's different ways that these formats can impact your business. So that's something to be aware of as you're going through. For instance, on Facebook, the marketplace ads, those actually do pretty well. A lot of Facebook just for marketplace. So to not have a small ad that fits in the marketplace user interface, that would be kind of a miss. If you're targeting, that would be, the type of person that would be looking for a deal on marketplace, you'd want to make sure that your ad is there versus worried about the big hero ad that's going to cost a lot more money as soon as they open up their app or something like that. Um, Tracking is so important. Um, with Google, it's beautiful that you can connect your Google Analytics to your Google Ads platform. Very simple to do, and that'll take care of 99% of your problems right there. It'll feed through, and then you'll be able to see where all of your clicks are coming from, and especially if tied into an online community to buy through e-commerce, you'll see all of that there. So that's a great thing. There's different types of modeling that you could say. Um, Contributed to my bottom line. I'm not going to get on all the nerdy stuff there. And then there's, return on investment or my return on ad spend. You should know that if you're doing advertising and selling specific things through those ads. With awareness, that's a lot different. If I'm just trying to be noticed to get some activity and get some notoriety in a community or increase my name, or it could be a cause. That's not really necessarily a ROAS situation for you. But if you're selling jars of honey, you'd want to know if I spend $100 on my Google ads that generated me $10,000 in sales, how can I get $10,001 in sales out of the same $100, right? So there's a lot there to pay attention to, and that's important stuff. So the tracking, without having a track, you wouldn't know that. And understanding also making sure, I mean, no one wants to click on their own ad, but every once in a while you really should do that, especially if you've been running ads for a little while, a couple months. What experience like? You might realize that um, in this new age of AI, Google so I do a lot of Google advertising, so I keep going back to that, but they will physically update your ads, pull content other places and add things to your ads without you even knowing about it. So you're going to see stuff and be like, oh, wow. And you can go and turn that off, but they will turn it on. And for instance, I have so many examples. The hours on a website had changed and they had pulled in a thing, said open now. And they're clearly not open because we know as a business it wasn't open, but the page that they indexed was, and it caused a lot of problems. So it's important to go through that customer journey and look at what that looks like for you. How hard is it to, you could be spending money on ads, but I wouldn't do that if you get to your shopping cart and it's really difficult to check out on mobile. that could be a blocker, right? And it'd be better to spend your resources and time on fixing your shopping cart to sell the honey on your website than to waste the money to get someone there who's going to have a frustrating experience. So, I got some examples here. As we think about how we're moving forward, we've been about 45 minutes now. Any more questions before we get into this next part?
Greg, quick question. When you
Yeah.
mentioned that you're not doing yourself any service by running something for a week.
Mhm.
So if it's a small business with a very small budget, what would you say is the minimum time that they should consider running something to have some meaningful, ROI on it?
Yeah, I mean, it's there's so many it depends. Um, it's certainly not a week. 2 weeks, you'd get out of that learning phase and you'd have some with the right ad and with a small budget, maybe it's a boosted post on Facebook or a boosted event that you are trying to get people to show up for your open house or something. That could be a good example of where it would work well. If you're driving to a CSA, for instance, you're starting a CSA and you want to sell those out, and that CSA is gonna stop selling in 2 weeks. You would have a chance there with a 2 week window. Um, but in general, I think a good month is useful, not just for the machines to learn, but to give you enough time to actually see some results.
Okay.
Um, yeah. Again, it depends. Especially with the budget, spending $100 in a week versus spending $2,000 in a week, there's a big difference.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
And that's kind of where we're going here with this media planning. And I do a lot of this with my team and our clients. And there's a lot of factors that go into how this all shakes out. Um, and priority, if you will, is always the budget. I know it stinks to start like, oh, what's your budget? It seems like, when you go to buy a car, well, how much do you want to pay for the car? Well, that's bad. There's different strategies and tactics, but the budget's very important because then we know really where we can start the conversation and start to think about how we could get the most um, upside to what we're doing. And then the timeline, are we talking for a, we call our advertising when they run a flight, how long is our flight? Are we talking 2 weeks, a month, 2 months, a year? And what's the goal? Sales or awareness. And then we look at the conversions. How is that going to be measured? What is the payoff? What's going to happen there? And then we start thinking about how can we get this campaign in front of this target audience? What does it look like? And then, what are the available assets? Do we have good photography? Good photography? Do we have video? Do we have a good message? Do we need to tweak and rewrite messages and to come up with all that stuff? So there's a lot of things that impact a timeline and impact a budget. So here's a sample media plan. So here's $1,000 a month. So a $12,000 investment over a year. And would I necessarily do this? Um, it depends. If it's something I'm consistently selling all year long, maybe. If I was again selling maple syrup, which is well, that's all year too, kind of. I mean, I know that this syrup season's kind of end of February, March. But if you've got something that is more seasonal, maybe you focus more on just when you know you're going to really start selling fruits and vegetables, farm stands, produce like that. Um, Focus on those warmer months or the fall harvest, for instance, and not go through the dead of winter. But if you're going all year long on some product or whatever it is, this is kind of how I would look at this. You've got $1,000 a month. Um, this is kind of a general thing. You've got $1,000 to spend. I would do a mix of intent and display. So raising awareness and capturing intent. So again, $13 a day. So it really breaks down to your daily budget in a lot of ways. Um, so if you're going to spend $13 a day and every click with $1, that's only 13 clicks to your website. So let's make sure your website is ready to convert, has the product in stock, has really good descriptions, and is gonna do its job for you. If that click is going to cost you 50 cents, that's 26 clicks a day. You've got a good chance of selling something, right? Um, but that's the thing that if we find out that your niche is a $5 a click a day, nope, not going to happen. There's just either going to need to be more budget or concentrated budget on Google or whatever, because that's pretty pricey. Um, so in general, if I can get a click for 50 to 75 cents a day, I would be okay spending 13 bucks a day on that. The display piece, again, that's going to give you a lot of awareness. Look at the impressions over on the right side there. Over 2 million impressions. That's a lot of awareness that you can buy with that channel. So Google Display is very economical, very, very good at getting your impression out there. And the tool within that platform to actually create your own ad, you can drag and drop an image. It'll put the text on there. It'll do all the stuff for you within that system. Very low barrier to entry for someone who's a little computer savvy. If you're doing a true display campaign, like with all that fancy targeting, that gets much more expensive. You need custom HTML5 coded advertising assets that you need expertise to create. Um, but the price on that, so CPM is cost per thousand impressions, super low in general. Again, it varies by audience, how you dial it in, your targets, and how the targeting goes can drive and change the cost or the CPM for Google Display. Um, and then I would go with the big one with Meta. I would always favor Meta, Instagram in terms of budget over Facebook because the Instagram opportunities, the placements are fewer, but they are also a little more costly because it's also video based most of the time. Stories, reels, sometimes a static ad inserted within your scroll on Instagram. Facebook offers a lot more, real estate. It could be through their stories, reels, posts, the shopping through the what's it called? Marketplace, all that stuff. So there's plenty of inventory on Facebook, tons of users, and that one's relatively inexpensive. So, but because Meta's or sorry, Instagram's more expensive, you kind of got to allocate a little bit more money there, even though it's the same platform. So overall, that's about 4 million impressions with a good mix of intent-driven traffic to your site, awareness, and depending on how you set up your Instagram or Facebook ad, it could be traffic to your website, it could be awareness of your business, or it could be growing your followers and growing your, engagement, if you will. So that's kind of where that one would land. If you wanted to say I only had $1,000 a month and I wanted to do maximum awareness on the budget, Google Display by far, is going to give you a lot of good traction there. I would invoke YouTube, bring that up, get a video together. You can do it on your phone. You can kind of create one. There's a lot of free tools that will allow you to create a video. Great opportunity there. And Google Display also does show on on YouTube. You get kind of that ad that sits on top of videos. So there's a lot within the Google's network that would get you a lot of impressions for a pretty decent investment. It's about $4 per thousand impressions with a video on YouTube. But again, if you've got the asset and you've got a video that really sells what you're offering, it's the easiest way to get video in front of people. Then again, Instagram and Facebook, they're kind of the same thing. And I would just go with awareness as the campaign strategy. When you go in and set that up, you choose awareness, and that'll give you a lower price point. I used to kind of, I don't want to call it a hack, but game the system a little bit, where I would always choose awareness because even though the click-through rate for awareness is like 0.03 out of a million views, just as good as getting, in my book, getting, a higher click rate on fewer views because I felt like the views or the impressions had value as well. So there's that. And so that's kind of mixed awareness. If I had $1,000, where I would spend it. Again, TikTok, you'd be priced right out of it. It wouldn't make any sense. Spotify is an option, but that at $13 for audio, that's pretty reasonable for audio. But again, if you don't have a lot to invest, it's just it wouldn't make sense. It's typically not something that's going to drive a ton of it's good for awareness, but targeting is not the best there either. Yeah, I think the mix of targeting and low price point is why most people stick to Google and Meta, and we see that in our own lives as well. Um, all right. And then if I want to do the most amount of sales amongst versions, I'd pull a trick for setting up display retargeting on my Google and my Facebook audiences. So anybody that visits my website, they're going to start to see my display ads after they visit my website. And I'm going to get them to my website by paying a lot more for a Google search, that intent right up front. So if we're searching for fresh honey near me, I'm interested in your honey, your AP area. I'm going to click through. Looks good. Oh, it's down the street. Maybe I'll go visit this weekend. But now you're in our bucket and we've got you. So we're going to start showing you our ads for our honey. It's the best honey in Litchfield County. And oh, by the way, there's a sale, 10% off. Click here now, pre-order, whatever it is. There's a lot of different tactics you can use with a search followed up by the display retargeting piece. And that retargeting also goes to Facebook. So I log on to Facebook. I'm, checking out when my family reunion is going to be. And oh, by the way, that reminds me that honey thing is still available down the street. I got to get there and do that. So that's kind of the thought process. That'll do the best for your $1,000 with conversions. Conversion minded, I guess I would say, um, strategy. So I think that that's about it for what I had to present. I'm right at an hour, but any questions? I see there's stuff in the
There's some in
chat,
the
but
chat, Greg.
yeah.
So one of them says for ads on the social, would you prefer boosting a successful post or creating something specifically for an ad?
Oh, good question. I didn't even talk. Yeah. So when Facebook, um, you can do an ad, straight up ad. I have a piece of material I want to send to everybody. I target that and I know what I'm going to get. With a boosted post, your yeah, if you've got a great post and you want to boost it to get outside of your own network, that's the goal, right? That's the reason you would do that. It's a good strategy to increase awareness with something is already engaging because it's kind of if you're saying I'm going to boost a good one, that's you already know it's a good post. It does what you want to do. Yeah, that's relatively inexpensive too. You can do that for $20. It's a great tactic. The other one is just the specifically creating an ad in Ads Manager is more about have a goal. I need to sell this product. I need to do this thing consistently. And I think consistency is a big key there versus, the hit or miss of a boosted post. Julia, do you have any? I know that you do a lot of this too.
Yes. So I used to work at a garden center for 3 years as their marketing manager, and we've had that where when New Jersey legalized marijuana, we had a sign up that said our grass is legal too. And it did so well on organic social. People thought it was funny and playful. So we put $20 behind it, got 500 likes. And it was just like a brand awareness, having fun thing. There was no call to action. There was no, come into our store, no promoting a sale. So something like that, you'll see good results because, picture of beautiful flowers. It's creative, it's resonating. Um, with a specific ad created for paid, that's what a designer has to learn is, are they creating something pretty or are they creating something to drive traffic? And that's where the paid team would weigh in to say, you don't have a call to action in the first 3 seconds of your video. You don't have, what action it is, what the sale is, present in there. So don't, if you want specifically to drive sales, don't necessarily be distracted by a picture of something cute and fun. If you're trying to get brand awareness, then that's fine.
And our next question is for an open house event, you suggest an ad or a boosted post, and how long should you run it prior to the actual event?
Um,
I suggest boosting an event.
exactly. Yes. Yeah. So I knew you were going to say that. That makes total sense. Absolutely. Um, I'm also thinking about what's not on Facebook, and you can have events listed on your own website and drive traffic to your website that way. through if you've got an events page on your site. So yeah, I could see it going both ways. But so yeah, if we went with Juliet's idea and boosted that, we put an event on Facebook, we boosted that. What would you say? $50 for a week before it?
We did. We actually had a client who had an event and they did a boosted event and they had a boosted ad as well. So we got to compare the results. The boosted event is how you get responses. So you were able to gauge a little bit better who might actually go because they're responding yes or interested. But the paid ad had better results and better reach. More people were liking it, more engagement. But we were kind of going in blind then with, okay, who's showing up? Because they liked the post.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Not seeing any in the chat. I don't know if anybody has one that they want to come off their microphone. We'll give you a second to do that. If not, I want to thank both Greg and Juliet for hosting tonight from Miranda Creative for the Connecticut Veteran Grown Initiative. You can check out the initiative at ctveterangrown.org. I've also in the chat put a link if you would like to, as a Connecticut farmer veteran, have your own free one-on-one session with the Miranda Creative team member. There's a link in the chat to sign up for that as well. So not seeing any other comments or anyone coming off mute.
I had a question.
Oh, go ahead.
All right. So one of the things we started doing at our farm was pre-ordering, where people go to our website, they pre-order, and I can put their dairy products out front. If I were to do like a Google ad, should I do something that highlights the farm per se and drives them to the website, where then there's something website says pre-order your dairy products, or should the ad be something that highlights pre-ordering and drives you to the website? Does that make sense?
Yeah, so it's more about my dairy farm being advertised or my pre-orders.
Right.
I think you'd probably sell more pre-orders and more product directly with that kind of strategy. You know,
So
making,
advertise pre-ordering or the farm?
you do both.
Okay.
It's like I think that's a very strong call to action,
Yeah.
in my opinion. And you could have a headline that says pre-orders available.
Okay.
You know, no hassle, save the million reasons to do that.
Right.
And just highlight those attributes, and then you get the residual, awareness of Guardian's Farm.
Okay. All right.
Okay, great.
Cool.
Thank you all for joining us tonight.